When I had my initial ideas to set this up, I had great expectations. I thought this is really going to work. Looked at the ideal situation, or so I thought. And I thought I can save time, I can save money, and I can make this do really well. And I thought this is the way forward. Solar panels, DC charger with a solar input, together win-win situation. Thinking in my head, as I'm driving around, the DC charger would have no problems in charging the battery. And I did recognize that the car that I've got, Ford Ranger, it's got a smart alternator. So I was wondering what the impact would be, and did some research, and DC charger solves that problem. So in my head, problem solved. And then I want to maximize the potential of the battery, so I need to make sure it's charging as much as possible. DC charger with solar input. In my head, thought that was the way forward. So off I went and did the installation for the solar panels. Everything went really well. Here's a little bit of a recap. It's a very short recap, but have a little look at two 200 watt monocrystalline solar panels installation that I put onto the roof. Okay, so and obviously what I needed to do was to make sure we've put the DC charger in. Now I actually purchased this from a company. You'll recognize the company on the label, Iron Man, and I'm very happy with what they did, very happy with the installation, and I thought this was the way forward. And so when I reviewed the actual installation, I was a little bit aware that perhaps I need to be adding a few more fuses into the system, double checking the cable sizes, because the more you invest time into this, the more you realize that the importance of a 12 volt battery installation, regardless of the charging or the batteries that you use, you need to make sure you have the correct cable size and the appropriate fuse for the cable that you're using. So that's absolutely crucial. And I wanted to double check, because when you get somebody else to do the installation for you, what's going to be important is that you understand what they've done and how they've done it. And I didn't get that. I didn't understand what they did at the time. I needed to get my head around it and have a look myself. So when I had a look at what was going on in this battery system that we've got, this dual battery system, you know, in my head, I've got a 300 amp hour battery, I've got a DC charger with solar input, 400 watts possible coming from the solar to help charge this battery. I thought this is all going to go well. And when we had the installation done, we drove back. You know, there were a few issues. Actually, the battery went flat as we were driving home. That's a 5-day drive. Now, you'd think, yeah, it probably will go flat. But I was just thinking, it seems to struggle to charge. And I wasn't convinced everything was right, but I kept going and still monitored the situation, but I really didn't dig deep enough. And then what I looked at was the actual installation of the battery system, and decided, with that awareness that I had, this new knowledge that I had of appropriate cable sizes and fuses that are needed, I thought, right, I'm going to rewire some of this and just double check. So I actually did some of that. I rewired some of the system in, put some more fuses in, put a cutoff switch for the battery, and added a little bit more technology. I added a shunt into the system, and I was able now to start to monitor what was happening with the draw from the battery, the amps, the current that was coming from the battery. And that was crucial to me, because I suddenly realized the more information that you have, the more awareness that you have of what's going on and what needs to happen and why is this happening, and that's why that's happening. So the more information you have, the more awareness you get. And as I was getting this information, I was beginning to realize that the charging of the battery it just wasn't quite there. I wasn't convinced it was charging very well. I've got a battery monitor placed on the dash, and it shows when the car is starting. There is definitely a change of voltage recognized on the battery. So I recognize there's something is happening, a charge is happening from the DCDC charger. So something is going on, but I wasn't sure, something wasn't quite right. And I did some more investigation, and I decided to make a major change because I just wasn't happy. I wanted to improve, and I wasn't happy. I decided that I wanted to move from the DC-DC charger with solar input to having separate devices. So you have a DC-DC charger just for the DC-DC charging, and for solar charging, you wanted a separate solar controller. And I just thought that makes sense. And again, my awareness for wanting more information, that was crucial to me. So I decided that the best way forward for that was to look at something that would give me Bluetooth, because you will see from one of the display devices that I've put in the vehicle, having something that you can access in the vehicle, but also on any mobile device really. And I have actually put the app that I've used onto my phone as well. So I'm able to actually access what's going on. And that was something which I thought I needed to do to move towards that. So I purchased a Victron smart controller. Now, I was very pleased to see how easy it was to wire in this smart controller. It basically has slots for putting the battery in and slots for putting the cable from the solar panels in. So straightforward enough, pretty easy. It is important to recognize, ideally you need an isolating switch for the solar panels, and then when you do your more research, you will realize it's not just a basic isolation switch. So you've got to look at the fact that you need to isolate both the ground and the live. And so I wanted to make sure I got that right as well. So again, a little bit of rewiring done to make that, but installed the Victron smart controller, and you can see the type that I installed. And straight away it was quite exciting to see some things happening, because now I've got two devices. I've got a DC-DC charger and a solar smart controller, and I was quite excited about the fact that I was aware and believed that this was going to work, and boy did it work. What a change. Now I can't emphasize this enough. Major difference to what was happening in the charging of this battery. Now, you remember I've got a 300 amp lithium iron phosphate battery, so it needs to make sure it's charging well. And suddenly I was aware that things were happening, and I'm just thrilled to bits. Problem solved, worry solved. Such a major decision to recognize the impact of having a separate solar charge controller. But let's add in the major reason why, because now, yes, I've got these two, and the DC-DC charger is charging the battery, and the solar controller is charging the battery. But what is happening now is that it's also happening when I'm driving. That is actually still happening. It's something which was something that didn't occur to me before. It's something I can park the car up. I use it as my daily while I'm still working, and until we do our world drive, right? Because that's coming, that's happening. And yet I park the car, and I park it outside. We're in Malaysia, and it is hot here. The sun shines, and when it does, it's hot. So charging the battery up while it's parking outside, amazing. Things are happening. I can see information on the screen. I can understand the difference between bulk, absorption and float, and recognize that my battery was really going places. So I'm feeling a lot more relieved. It's something that when you start looking at this system and you start putting things together and you want to plan it properly, I was so aware of the fact that I needed to get this right. I'm guessing that as we go on our drive, not everything will run smoothly with the charging and the battery and the power and the way we use it. But you know, just feeling a little bit better about how it's charging makes the world of a difference. So that's my recommendation, guys, is not just a DC-DC charger with a solar input but spread them out, split them out, have separate devices because the difference is huge. Okay, so there you go. Please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments down below what your issues have been with charging and what you have done to solve this, and if you have done the same thing and what you have found out as well. So see you next time.